All right, welcome to the show, everybody. Dr. Chad Woolner here with Dr. Andrew Wells. And on today's episode of the Laser Light Show, we have with us special guest, Dr. Wendy Henricks. We're excited to have her with us, so let's get started. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, I used to love going to laser light shows at the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. They would put on these amazing light shows with incredible designs synced up to some of my favorite music. From the Beatles to Pink Floyd to Jimi Hendrix and Metallica, they were awesome. Little did I know then that lasers would have such a profound effect in my life decades later. As a chiropractic physician, I have seen firsthand just how powerful laser therapy is at helping patients struggling with a wide range of health problems. As the leader in laser therapy, Erchonia has pioneered the field in obtaining 20 of the 23 total FDA clearances for therapeutic application of lasers. On this podcast, we'll explore the science and technology and physiology behind what makes these tools so powerful. Join me as we explore low-level laser therapy. I'm Dr. Chad Woolner, along with my good friend Dr. Andrew Wells, and welcome to the Laser Light Show. All right, welcome to the show, everyone, and a special welcome to Dr. Wendy. Thank you so much for being on with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I've never done anything like this, so it's going to be very cool.
We'll make it really easy for you.
All right, sounds good.
So you are a chiropractic physician based out of northern Wisconsin, is that correct?
That's correct.
Fantastic.
Little town.
And you practice with your husband?
I practice with my husband, Scott. We've been practicing for 30 years together.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
And we still like each other.
That's even more incredible. Tell us a little bit about your story. We'd love to hear kind of how you got started and your journey along the way.
So we've been using the Erchonia cold lasers for about 4 years in our practice. And we were introduced to them many, many years ago. We've known about them. But you have to go to a cold laser seminar really to learn about them. And it just so happened that I was at a concussion conference with Dr. Rob Silverman, and he was talking about the use of cold laser for treatment of concussion and traumatic brain injuries. And so that's how I started to learn about it. And I happened to have had a traumatic brain injury when I was much younger. I was 19. I was hit by a car on my bicycle. Back then, there were no helmets, and I was thrown about 30 feet, and I was knocked out. I had a concussion. Wow. And we were at the conference, and he asked if anybody had a concussion. I happened to be sitting up front, put my hand up. He had me do a bunch of stuff in front of my colleagues, which I failed miserably. And then he put me on the FX 635 for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then had me, do the testing again. And by my estimate, I felt about 75% better.
Wow.
And yeah, and then he did more cold laser at the break. And if you've ever had a life-changing experience, this was one of those for me. I thought that some of the things that I was experiencing was from just getting older and going through perimenopause and menopause. I had balance issues, brain fog, those kinds of things. And after just 5 minutes of using the FX 635, it's like my head was clear. I could stand on one foot. I could walk properly. And so immediately, really, almost immediately, bought a laser, and we started using it in our practice. And then we added the Zerona, the fat loss laser, and we have an EVRL that we take with us. We use it, in the treatment rooms, but we also have the FX 405 as well. Wow. So, yeah, I'm assuming you guys both use the lasers on yourselves.
We do.
But it was a life-changing experience for me.
I'm curious, the first question I would ask you is, did you know prior to the seminar that you had the deficits you had? Was that just something that you just assumed, like, yeah, I know I've got these issues and I'm going to live with these issues? Or was it like a moment of like, holy cow, I didn't realize things were this bad?
Well, I knew I had these things, but again, I thought it was part of aging. And I mean,
Okay.
I exercise regularly, I eat right. I mean, I was doing all the right things, got it adjusted. We do vibration in our practice, doing all the, quote unquote, right things.
Sure.
But I had no idea that treatment with a cold laser would make such a difference. So the
Yeah.
answer to your question is, I knew I had it, but no, I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right. Yeah.
And Dr. Wendy, what was the length of time between the accident at 19 and this first laser experience with Dr. Silverman? Approximately how many years was that in between the
Like
accident?
31 years.
See, I wouldn't. It's interesting, right? If, obviously there's deficits from accidents like that and deficits just from life over 30 some years. But I think it's pretty remarkable that you had this, 3-minute laser experience and then notice that dramatic of a change over such a short amount of time. That must have been pretty startling to you. And I'm sure you don't chalk it up to just being around the amazing presence and power of Dr. Rob Silverman. He's an awesome guy, by the way. Just the healing effect of
No, but
that.
he might say that.
Yeah,
He would.
right.
He would.
Say that.
Yeah.
No,
No.
I think
Yeah.
that's a great point that you bring up, Andrew, because I think that's the thing is that unfortunately for a lot of patients, when they deal with chronic health issues that have in any variety, any type for that matter, I think a lot of times people lose hope of things ever improving to where they just kind of have this mental block of like, yeah, I've tried everything, I've done everything, and what a remarkable experience, what a testament to the power of these tools, to the fact that here we are 30 some years later, and you could have that dramatic of an effect again, like Andrew said, so quickly. What a neat experience for you to see and for you to have personally.
Like I said, life-changing experience for me. And for the cold laser, it was kind of like you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Right.
You know, I knew about cold laser. Obviously, I knew about the science behind cold laser, but until you've had it done on you, I don't think you can really explain it
Yeah.
to somebody. And so,
Yeah.
in our practice, I tell that story all the time.
Yeah.
Because it really was a life-changing experience for me. And
Oh, for sure.
I use the laser on myself, full body, 1 to 2 times a week, always doing my brain, vagus nerve nearly every day. I am a huge advocate for cold laser.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of started on this a little bit. You talked a little bit about it, but I want to tease this out a little bit more because I feel like I can't be alone in this experience, as it sounds like you had a similar experience. Here you were. How early on in practice did you learn about low-level laser therapy, specifically Erchonia lasers? Fairly early on, you had heard about them right on the scene, and
Yeah, pretty early on.
yet
Um,
you didn't incorporate them. Same with me. Like when I was in chiropractic college, I graduated in 2008. I had heard about Erchonia, and in my mind, it's not at all that I thought that it was all hype. I didn't think that, but I have to say I was kind of dismissive of it. Yeah. I'm sure that helps on some level with musculoskeletal stuff, but beyond that, I don't think it's really as amazing as everybody seems. Everybody in the Erconi world seems to claim that they are. That was my attitude until I had firsthand experience. What was going through your mind at that time, if as best you can recall? Was it a similar sentiment? Yeah, tell us where you were at mentally.
so in Wisconsin, cold laser, I think that it was approved by the chiropractic examining board to be part of our scope of practice somewhere between 2000 and maybe 2007 or 8.
Okay.
So, Erchonia had been around probably for about a decade by then.
Right.
And you had to go to a specific Erchonia seminar, to learn about cold laser. And a lot of those were not recognized by the state of Wisconsin for continuing education. So,
Mhm.
I would pick and choose obviously what programs that I was going to. And so even though they had great speakers, Dan Murphy being one of them, I never went to a specific seminar. And this happened to be at our annual chiropractic convention in Wisconsin. Dr. Rob has spoken there many times, but it happened to be that they had just had the, you know, the people that decide what the best practices are for treatment of traumatic brain injuries. They have a conference, I think, every 3 or 4 years, and they updated those best practices to include cold laser treatment. And
Yeah,
the research is overwhelming, showing how it can have such a positive effect, not on just traumatic brain injury and concussion, but people with degenerative neurological conditions like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. I was just reading some studies the other day that were back, I think they were in 2018. So there's more and more research about the positive effects of cold laser treatment, not just for low back pain and for plantar fasciitis, which it originally came out for, but for other things as well that really tie in with chiropractic practice. Not that back pain and foot pain isn't part of chiropractic practice, but we're nervous system doctors, and the brain is the main controller. So if you're not treating the brain, you're really not treating, the main part of the controlling factor in the body's function.
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's incredible. So, if I'm hearing correctly, your attitude prior to this experience was kind of like, it's there. I'm sure that's great. I'm sure that's fine. But right now I'm more focused on CEs and things that are going to be the highest use of my time, right? In terms of, but what was going through your mind when you started to hear about this kind of shift or change in terms of best practices with low level lasers? Did you start connecting dots in terms of your own personal story at that point in time where you're like, huh?
Well, yeah, during I'll say the lecture portion of the conference rather than the demonstration, he was talking about a lot of things other than just cold laser. But
Sure.
when he started talking about cold laser and, what it really does in the mitochondria of the cells and increasing the energy, I mean, we are energetic beings. So for me, it tied all together in terms of, again, chiropractic practice, what we do in the body with a chiropractic adjustment, elevating the frequency so that people can heal in a more timely manner. Just doing what the body's already designed to do. We're, self-healing, self-regulating beings. And when we can increase the frequency within the body, within the cells that we're treating, everything is going to happen just at a much faster rate.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Have you since that point in time, have you noticed any other significant changes with your health in terms of, obviously traumatic brain injuries are known to, as a secondary, tertiary kind of downstream issue, produce gut issues, gut permeability issues. Did you experience things like that? Did you see any other changes that you maybe weren't expecting or were surprising?
Well, I'd been treating my gut through other means, through nutrition and whatnot, but I did notice a difference. I noticed a huge difference in my energy. I did the full, 12-week like concussion protocol that Dr. Trevor Berry and Dr. Rob utilize.
Mm,
So I did that, and then after that, I took I'll say a siesta from it. I just wanted to see what was going to happen in my body, and it was
sure.
probably about 8 to 10 weeks after, I noticed just little things, maybe a little bit with my balance, or my energy is not quite as high today because I'm tuned into that. And but I was treating my low back at the same time because I had a completely blown disc in my low back from a different injury that I had as a child. I was a gymnast, and I hurt my back when I was pretty young, and I have a vertebrae that really has no disc. I don't have any pain from it, but I know we're talking about something else right now. But on that note,
Sure.
I actually have a joint space now, and it looks so gnarly on the x-ray. It really doesn't look healthy. It doesn't look normal, but it looks so much better. Um, so getting back to the original question, I notice things within my body. My whole function is better. Everything is better in my body. Um, I'm 55, and at 55, I feel better now than I did was when I was in my late 20s, because that's really probably, when I started to experience things, but it's so insidious. And that's what happens with patients, that the things that they're experiencing, sometimes they have a specific injury, but a lot of things like gut issues and brain fog, it's very insidious, and they don't even realize how bad they're feeling until they feel better.
It's like as a kid, I remember during the summer playing outside with friends, and all of a sudden you're like looking around, you're like, man, it's really dark outside. How did it get so dark outside all of a sudden? Same sort of idea with these issues, right? Is that they
Right.
slowly, I think most people can relate in terms of weight loss or weight gain, I should say.
Right.
It just happens and it just creeps up on people. You're like, what the heck? All of a sudden, 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds later, people are like, how did that happen? And it's just like, slowly, surely.
Right.
It's interesting when we talk about cold laser. We've often said, and I have often said, that you can't feel it when you're using it. Like you can't feel it like a class 4 laser. You can't feel it like electric stim or PEMF. But actually, I think that's not really correct. You do feel it. You really do feel it. And so
I sort of feel tingling when it goes on, like when I can feel like sort of tingling in the area that's being treated, especially when you do it on your brain.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think to your experience when you were at Dr. Silverman's conference, and to Chad's experience, so Chad created this one treatment challenge with patients, is that you don't necessarily feel it like actually on your skin or working necessarily. I think most people, if they're not in tune with their bodies, aren't going to feel some kind of sensation, but you feel it immediately afterwards in terms of energy production, less pain. You just feel differently. That fog is kind of lifted, and it's hard to explain unless you've actually, like you guys are talking about, like you've actually seen it, like a light turns on, something's
Right.
working better. And it's even more noticeable when you've been living in the fog for so long. If you've
Yeah,
had chronic injuries, or you've had gut infections, dysbiosis, and things like that, all of a sudden that light goes on. That's how you feel it. It's not the actual application of. But I think we've been kind of talking about this in the wrong way. You do feel it, and to your point, you felt it very quickly. The effects of it very quickly.
absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
So you've been using these lasers now in your clinic for the past 4 years. Maybe describe a little bit about that journey in terms of implementation, some of the things that you now have seen that have maybe reinforced. Because the thing that's so cool in talking with you already, Dr. Wendy, is it is abundantly clear the conviction and the belief that you have from your own personal experience. That's something we encourage all practitioners. We're going to be teaching at a seminar here in a few weeks, and that's like one of the quote unquote secrets that we share. It's not really much of a secret, but it is kind of a secret. Is that
Right.
conviction just has to be there? You have to have that conviction, because when you have that, it makes the process of quote unquote selling it to patients not at all feel like a sales pitch, but rather you genuinely feel this is coming from a set of a place of compassion and service and mission and purpose. You're trying to really, really help these people. So maybe talk to that in terms of that transitional journey from having experienced it for yourself, but maybe not fully understanding all the specifics and technical aspects of it, just knowing that it works, and then having that experience of seeing it in practice and what's kind of transpired since then.
Sure. So use the laser on myself, like I said, and then we incorporated it into the practice. I had some specific patients that I wanted to start with it on. And like anything new, people are like, okay, what's this thing now? Um, but I have one specific gentleman who he was a veteran in Vietnam, and he was affected by Agent Orange, and he happened to be overweight, had chronic low back pain, spinal stenosis. So he was the first person that I use the cold laser on, and we started treating his low back. But shortly thereafter, we added brain treatment for him, and he still does treatment on his low back and his brain. He's got a chronic condition. He still does it
Sure.
once a week, and because we have the FX 405 and the 635, we can treat both areas at the same time. So we started out with the FX 635. About a month, maybe 6 weeks later, we went to another seminar to learn more about the cold laser and its efficacy, the research very specific to cold laser. Again, Dr.